They hung my mom, a desperate plea to the city's most dangerous man. But this is no random act of cruelty. An unimaginable secret is revealed, turning a simple rescue into a brutal war for honor, family, and a future he never knew he wanted. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The noise of the restaurant kitchen was a familiar music to Salvatore Rossi. The clang of pans, the hiss of garlic in oil, the low talk of his men at the tables outside. This was his place, his kingdom. He was reviewing the books when the front door burst open, not with a crash, but with a small, desperate figure stumbling through. A little girl, she couldn't have been more than 8. Her dress was dirty, her face streaked with tears and dust. She looked around, wild-eyed, until her gaze landed on Salvatore. He was a big man with hard eyes and hands that could be cruel. Most people looked away, but this little girl ran straight for him. His men, David and James, moved to block her. Salvatore held up a hand. He was curious. "Mister, please," the girl choked out, her small body shaking. "You have to help. They hung my mom on a tree. You have to save her." Salvatore put down his pen. A sad story. The city was full of them. People got hurt. It wasn't his business. "What tree, little one, and who is your mom?" The girl, Alina, pointed a trembling finger south toward the old town square. "The big tree, the family tree. They took her there. They said it was a message. Please, she can't breathe." A cold stillness settled over Salvatore. The family tree wasn't just any tree. It was the ancient oak in the center of the square. For 100 years, it was where the Rossi family and their rivals, the Vansettis, left public messages. A hanging there wasn't just murder. It was a slap in the face to everyone watching. And the Vansettis had been getting bold lately. Salvatore stood up, his chair scraping loudly. "David, James, with me, bring the cars." He looked down at Alina. Her eyes were wide with a hope that cut through him. "Show me." The ride to the square was silent except for Alina's sniffles. Salvatore looked out the window, his mind working. Who would the Vansettis target? A shopkeeper who didn't pay? A gambler who owed too much? Why make a spectacle of it? The cars pulled into the square. It was mostly empty, the evening market packing up. But there, in the center, under the sprawling branches of the massive oak, was a crowd. And above them, dangling from a thick limb, was a woman. She was alive. Her hands were tied behind her back, a rough rope around her chest under her arms, hoisting her about 10 feet off the ground. Her feet kicked weakly. She was struggling to find a purchase with her toes on the knobbly bark of the tree trunk. Her head was slumped forward, long dark hair covering her face. Salvatore's blood began to boil. This was an insult on his doorstep. He got out of the car, his men fanning out behind him. People in the square saw him and melted away, leaving only 3 Vansetti soldiers standing under the tree, laughing and smoking. "Cut her down," Salvatore said, his voice low and dangerous. The biggest Vansetti thug, a man named Paul, smirked. "Or what, Rossi? She's ours. Her husband owed us money. He's gone. She pays. It's the law." "Your law," Salvatore said, walking closer. "Not mine, not on this square. Last chance. Cut her down." Paul laughed. He pulled out a knife, but not to cut the rope. He poked the woman's leg with it. She flinched and let out a muffled cry. That sound, it was weak, strained, but it echoed in Salvatore's memory down a long, dark tunnel of years. He froze. The woman lifted her head, gasping for air, pushing her hair back from her face with a desperate jerk of her neck. Time stopped for Salvatore Rossi. The square, the thugs, his men, the little girl pulling on his coat, it all faded into a blur. All he could see was that face. Older now, lined with fear and pain, but unmistakable. Wide hazel eyes just like his own. The small, straight nose, the shape of her mouth. It was Stella. Stella, his little sister who had vanished in the night 15 years ago. She had left a note, begging him to understand, saying she couldn't live this life, that she was pregnant and had to protect her baby. He had searched for her until his father told him to stop. She was dead to them, a traitor. And now, here she was, hanging from the family tree. A roar built in Salvatore's chest. It wasn't just anger now. It was a primal, volcanic fury, the public humiliation of his own blood. The Vansettis hadn't just attacked some random woman. They had tortured his sister. They had hung his niece's mother up like a piece of meat. Paul the thug saw the change in Salvador's face. The smirk died. "Boss, what's the—" Salvador didn't let him finish. In one fluid motion, he pulled the pistol from his shoulder holster and fired. Crack! The bullet hit Paul square in the forehead. The man dropped like a sack of stones. The other two Vansetti men fumbled for their guns. David and James were faster. 2 more cracks echoed in the square. Then silence. Salvador didn't even look at the bodies. He holstered his gun and ran to the tree. "David, get her down now." David pulled out a switchblade, jumped, and grabbed the rope. He sawed at it frantically. The rope snapped. Stella fell. Salvador caught her before she hit the ground, stumbling under her weight but holding her tight. He laid her gently on the grass. Her wrists were raw and bleeding. He cupped her face. "Stella, Stella, look at me." Her eyes fluttered open. They were clouded with pain and confusion. Then they focused on him. For a second, there was no recognition. Then a slow, dawning horror. And then a heartbreaking softness. "Sal," she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. "Salvador." "I'm here, Stella, I'm here." He brushed the hair from her forehead, his big, rough hands surprisingly gentle. Elena rushed over and threw her small arms around her mother's neck, sobbing. "Mama, Mama, I got help. I found the boss man." Stella hugged her daughter tightly, then looked at Salvador with desperate fear. You have to run. They'll come for you. They'll kill you for this." Salvador stood up, lifting Stella into his arms as if she weighed nothing. Elena clung to his leg. He looked at the 3 dead Vansettis, at the tree, at his sister's bruised face. A cold, terrible calm settled over him. This wasn't just business anymore. This was family. "Let them come," he said, his voice like gravel. "They hung a Rossi on the family tree. Now they will learn what that means. Take the bodies. Dump them at Vansetti's casino doors." He carried Stella to his car, Elena scrambling in after them. As they drove away from the square, Stella shivered in the backseat. Salvador took off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Your home, is it safe?" he asked. She shook her head, clutching Elena. "They tore it apart looking for money. There's nothing left." "You're coming to my house." It wasn't an offer, it was a decree. Stella looked at him, the brother she hadn't seen since he was a young, angry man of 20. Now he was a king of the underworld. "Sal, I left. I ran from all of this. I wanted a normal life for her." Salvador looked at Elena, who was watching him with huge, trusting eyes. This little girl who had walked into the lion's den to save her mother. She had more Rossi in her than she knew. "The life found you, Stella," he said quietly. "It found you and hung you on a tree. Now you are under my protection, both of you. No one will touch you again." They arrived at Salvador's house. It was a large, old stone house on a quiet, tree-lined street. It looked respectable. Inside, it was a fortress. Men stood guard. His housekeeper, an older woman named Rose, came rushing forward. "Sir, what happened?" "Rose, this is my sister, Stella, and my niece, Elena. They are staying here. Get Stella a hot bath, food, bandages for her wrists. Get Elena whatever she needs." Rose's eyes went wide at the word sister, but she just nodded. "Of course, sir. Right this way, miss." Stella paused, leaning on Rose. She looked back at Salvador standing in the grand hallway. "Thank you, Salvador." He just gave a single, slow nod. Later that night, Salvador sat in his study, a glass of amber whiskey in his hand. The door opened softly. It was Stella. She was clean, wearing borrowed clothes, her wrists wrapped in white bandages. She looked younger, more like the girl he remembered. "Elena is asleep," she said quietly. "She's exhausted." "Sit," Salvador said. She sat in the chair across from his desk, folding her hands in her lap. The silence between them was heavy with 15 years of absence. "Why didn't you come to me?" he asked finally, the question tearing out of him. "When you were in trouble, when that man, Elena's father, left you with debts." Stella looked down. His name was Anthony, and he didn't just leave. The Vansettis killed him. They said he stole from them. He didn't. He was just weak. He gambled. I didn't know the debt was so big. She took a shaky breath. And I didn't come to you because I was ashamed. I left you. I turned my back on the family. How could I come crawling back for help? You are my family. Salvador's fist hit the desk, making the glass jump. You always were. Father, he was wrong to say what he said. You wanted out. I understand that now. Do you? She asked, tears in her eyes. I have spent 15 years building this empire, and in one moment, seeing you on that tree, I realized it is worth nothing if I cannot protect my own sister. He drank the whiskey. The Vansettis have declared war, not on my business, but on my blood. They will pay. Please, Sal, Stella pleaded. No more violence, just let us disappear again. It's too late. They saw me take you. They know. If I let them live after this insult, I am weak. And in our world, weakness is death. He looked at her. You will stay here. You and Alina, you are safe. The next few days were tense. Salvador's men were on high alert. He called in favors, moved money, prepared for battle. Alina followed him around the house like a small shadow. She was quiet, but curious. She asked him about the paintings on the wall, about the gardens. One afternoon, he found her in his study, looking at an old photo on the shelf. It was of him and Stella as teenagers. He was trying to look tough. She was laughing. That's you, Alina said. And that's Mom, she's pretty. She was always pretty, Salvador said. Are you going to hurt the bad men who hurt my mom? Alina asked, her voice small but serious. Salvador crouched down to her level. Yes, Alina, I am. Good, she said, with a fierceness that surprised him. Then she hugged him. It was a quick, tight hug, and then she ran off. Salvador stayed crouched for a moment, stunned. The hug felt like a brand on his heart. This child, his blood, trusted him to make things right. A man named Mark, his most trusted lieutenant, came into the room. Boss, we have a problem, the Vansettis. They've taken Mercy. Salvador stood up, his face turning to stone. Mercy was the owner of a small flower shop near the square. She was also his secret. The only woman he had ever let himself love in all these years. A quiet, kind woman who knew nothing of his real business. He visited her as a simple man named Daniel. No one was supposed to know. How? Salvador's voice was deadly calm. They must have been watching you for a long time. They know about her. They left a note at her shop. They say if you want to see her alive, you come to the old warehouse by the docks. Alone, tonight at midnight. It was a trap, an obvious one, but they had Mercy. Stella walked in, having heard everything. Salvador, you can't go. It's what they want. They have her, Stella. They have my. He couldn't say the word. Your love, Stella finished softly. She saw the truth on his face. Then you have to be smart. You can't just walk in. Salvador paced. He had to save Mercy, but he also couldn't leave Stella and Alina unprotected, and he couldn't walk into a slaughter. An idea began to form, a dangerous, almost impossible idea. It would require perfect timing and trust. He turned to Mark. Listen carefully. Here is what we are going to do. Midnight at the docks. The warehouse was a dark, hulking shape against the foggy sky. Salvador drove alone, as instructed. He parked and got out, wearing a simple coat, a pistol heavy under his arm. He walked to the main door. It creaked open. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit by a few bare bulbs. In the center, tied to a chair, was Mercy. She was terrified, her eyes wide above the gag in her mouth. Standing around her were 6 Vansetti men, and in front of them, leaning against a crate, was Leo Vansetti himself. A thin, cruel man in an expensive suit. Salvador, so good of you to come, Leo said, spreading his arms. And alone, how noble. Let her go, Leo. This is between us. Is it? Leo laughed. You killed 3 of my men over some worthless woman. You made this personal. Now I take what is precious to you. He walked over and stroked Mercy's hair. She flinched. Pretty thing. She really thinks you're a restaurant owner named Daniel. How sweet. Salvador's hand twitched toward his gun. Ah. Leo pulled out his own gun and pointed it at Mercy's head. None of that. Now here is what is going to happen. You will get on your knees. You will beg for her life. And then I will shoot you. And maybe if I'm feeling kind, I will let her go, after my men have had some fun. Salvador stood still, calculating. He could try to shoot Leo, but the others would gun him down and they'd kill Mercy. He needed the distraction. He took a slow step forward. You made one mistake, Leo. Oh, what's that? You hung the wrong woman on that tree. Leo smirked. That drunken gambler's wife, she was nothing. She is Stella Rossi, my sister. Leo's smirk froze. His eyes widened in genuine shock. He hadn't known. He had just been sending a random message. The color drained from his face. To publicly torture a Rossi blood relative was not just an insult. It was a death sentence for his entire crew. That moment of shock was all Salvador needed. He didn't reach for his gun. He yelled, now. From high up in the warehouse rafters, 3 sharp cracks rang out. Not gunshots. The sounds of silenced rifles. 3 of Leo's men dropped, holes in their heads. At the same moment, the side door of the warehouse burst open. Mark and 3 of Salvador's best men charged in, guns blazing. Chaos. Leo shouted, turning his gun from Mercy to Salvador. Salvador was already moving. He dove behind a stack of crates, pulling his own pistol. He fired twice, hitting one of the remaining Vansetti men. Bullets flew, wood splintered. Salvador saw Mark tackle the last thug. He saw Leo running toward a back exit, shooting wildly behind him. Salvador stood up and aimed. He fired one shot. It hit Leo in the back of the leg. The man screamed and fell. In seconds, it was over. The Vansetti men were dead or disarmed. Only Leo was alive, moaning on the floor. Salvador ran to Mercy. He tore off her gag and cut her ropes. She was sobbing, clinging to him. Daniel, Salvador, who are you? I'm the man who loves you, he whispered, holding her close. And I'm so sorry. He led her out to Mark. Take her to the safe house. Keep her protected. Then he walked over to Leo Vansetti, who was crawling toward the door, leaving a trail of blood. Salvador put his foot on Leo's bullet wound and pressed down. Leo screamed. You hung my sister on a tree, Salvador said, his voice cold and empty. You tried to kill the woman I love. You threatened my family. Please, Rossi, I didn't know she was your sister. It was a mistake. There are no mistakes in this life, only consequences. Salvador raised his gun. Wait, my family, they'll pay. Money, anything. Salvador looked at the desperate, broken man. He thought of Stella's bruised face, of Alina's small, trusting hug, of Mercy's tears. Tell your father, Salvador said. The war is over. The Vansettis are finished. If he leaves the city by tomorrow night, he lives. If he stays, he dies with you. Then, without another word, Salvador pulled the trigger. The sound was loud in the sudden quiet of the warehouse. Salvador walked out into the cold night air. He felt tired, but he also felt a strange, new feeling, not just power, but purpose. He had something real to protect now, not just territory, a family. Back at the house, Stella was waiting up, packing in the study. Alina was asleep on the sofa, a blanket over her. When Salvador walked in, dirty and smelling of gunpowder, Stella ran to him. Are you hurt? Is it over? It's over, he said. Mercy is safe. Leo Vansetti is dead. The rest will run. Stella let out a long breath she'd been holding. She looked at her brother, really looked at him. He was still the hard, dangerous man from the underworld. But in his eyes, she saw the boy she grew up with. The one who would fight anyone who bullied her. Thank you, she said softly. Salvador looked over at Alina, sleeping peacefully. She hugged me, he said, almost to himself. Stella smiled a little. She's a good judge of character. Will you stay? He asked, the question hanging in the air. Not just until it's safe. Will you stay? Here with me? This house, it's been empty for too long. Stella looked around the grand, lonely house. She looked at her daughter, safe and warm. She looked at her brother, offering her a home, a real one with all its dangers and its protections. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief, of homecoming. Yes, Sal, she whispered. We'll stay. Salvatore Rossi nodded. For the first time in 15 years, the dawn of the city felt like he wasn't just building an empire. He was rebuilding a family, and he would burn the whole world down to keep it safe. The morning after the warehouse was quiet, too quiet. Salvatore slept for only a few hours in his chair in the study. When he woke, the first thing he saw was Alina. She was sitting on the floor by the door, drawing on a piece of paper with some crayons Rose had found for her. "Good morning, Uncle Sal," she said, not looking up. The words hit him in the chest. Uncle Sal. No one had called him that since Stella left. He cleared his throat. "Good morning, Alina. What are you drawing?" She held up the paper. It was a crude but clear picture. A big tree, a stick-figure woman hanging from it, and a larger stick-figure man with a gun standing in front of her. Next to the man was a little stick-figure girl. "It's you saving Mom," Alina said matter-of-factly. Salvatore walked over and took the drawing. He looked at it for a long time. "It's a good picture," he said, his voice rough. "Can I keep it?" Alina beamed and nodded. Stella came in then, dressed in clothes Rose had bought, simple jeans and a sweater. She looked more like herself. "There you are, sweetheart. Don't bother your uncle." "She's no bother," Salvatore said, carefully placing the drawing on his desk. He looked at Stella. "We need to talk, the Vansettis." They sat in the kitchen. Rose made coffee. The room was warm and smelled of bread. It felt normal, but Salvatore's words were not. "Leo Vansetti is dead. His father, old man Alberto Vansetti, will have heard by now. He has two choices. He can take his remaining men and leave the city, or he can try for revenge." "What will he do?" Stella asked, stirring her coffee nervously. "He is old and proud. Leo was his only son. He will want revenge." Salvatore's phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. He read it, his face hardening. "He's chosen. Mark says Vansetti's men are gathering at their social club. They're not packing, they're arming." "So what happens now?" Stella's hand was shaking. "Now we finish it, completely. If we don't, he will come for you, for Alina, for Mercy. He will never stop." Salvatore stood up. "You will stay in this house. David and James will stay here with 4 other men. No one goes in or out without me. Do you understand?" Stella nodded, her face pale. Salvatore went upstairs to change into a fresh, dark suit. As he was tying his tie, there was a soft knock. Mercy stood at the door of the guest room. Mark had brought her back at dawn. She looked tired, her eyes red from crying. "Salvatore," she said. It was the first time she hadn't called him Daniel. "Mercy, are you all right? Did you sleep?" "How can I sleep?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The man I loved, he doesn't exist. You're a gangster. You killed people last night." "I killed the men who took you," he said simply. "But you've killed others, haven't you? Before me." She hugged herself. "The restaurant, it's just a front, isn't it?" "Yes," he said. He wouldn't lie to her, not anymore. "And the woman, Stella, she's really your sister." "Yes, and Alina is my niece. The men who hurt them are the same men who took you. It's all one world, Mercy. A bad world. I tried to keep you out of it." She was silent for a long time. "What happens now, to us?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "But right now, I have to go. The man who ordered you taken is still out there. He wants to hurt my family. I have to stop him." "By killing him?" "Yes." Mercy looked at the floor. She was a flower shop owner. She loved quiet Sundays and books. She didn't know anything about this, but she also remembered the terror of the warehouse, the gun at her head. And she remembered Salvatore, Daniel, risking everything, walking in alone to save her. "Come back," she whispered, not looking at him. He walked over and lifted her chin. He saw fear in her eyes, but also something else, a stubborn strength. "I will," he promised. Downstairs, his men were waiting. Mark, Paul, and 6 others. They were all armed, their faces serious. "The plan, boss?" Mark asked. "We go to the source, the Vansetti Social Club. We end it there today." Salvatore's voice was calm. "We go in fast, we go in hard, no warnings, no talks. Alberto Vansetti does not leave that building alive." The drive to the Vansetti Club was tense. No one spoke. Salvatore looked out the window. He thought of Alina's drawing. He was doing this for her, to make sure no one ever hung her mother on a tree again, to make sure she could grow up safe. The club was in an old brick building in a rundown part of the city. There were cars parked outside, lookouts on the street. Salvador's convoy didn't stop. The first car drove right past the lookouts. Men inside opened fire with silenced pistols from the car windows. The lookouts fell before they could shout a warning. Salvador's car screeched to a halt right in front of the club's door. He and his men piled out. They didn't knock. Salvador kicked the door open. Inside, it was a scene of chaos. The main room was full of Vanzetti men, maybe 15 of them. They were drinking coffee, checking guns. They were preparing for war, but they weren't ready for it to come to their doorstep this fast. For a second, everyone froze. Then Salvador fired. The fight was short and brutal. Salvador's men were prepared, armored, and furious. The Vanzetti men were caught by surprise. Gunfire exploded in the small room. It was deafening. Wood paneling splintered. Glass shattered. Men shouted and fell. Salvador moved like a storm. He shot a man reaching for a shotgun. He turned and fired twice at a man coming from a side room. He didn't feel fear. He felt a cold, clear purpose. In 3 minutes, it was over. The main room was silent except for moans. All of Salvador's men were standing. Most of the Vanzetti men were not. "Clear the back rooms," Salvador ordered. Mark and 2 others moved down a hallway, kicking in doors. Shots were fired. Then silence. Mark came back. "Clear, boss, but no old man. He's not here." Salvador's blood ran cold. He's not here. If Alberto Vanzetti wasn't here preparing for war, where was he? His phone rang. It was David, the man left guarding his house. Salvador answered. "Boss," David's voice was tight with panic. "We have a problem. A van just pulled up a block away. Men with guns are getting out. I think it's Vanzetti. He's coming here." Alberto Vanzetti hadn't gone to his club. He had guessed Salvador would attack it. So he had gathered his best remaining men, and he was going straight for Salvador's heart, his home, where his sister and his niece were. Salvador's calm shattered. Hold them at all costs. I am coming." He turned to his men, his face a mask of pure terror. "To the cars, now, he's at my house." They ran. They left the club behind, the dead and the dying. They screeched out into the street, tires screaming. Salvador sat in the passenger seat, his heart pounding against his ribs. He thought of Stella, of Alina, of the 3 dead Vanzettis under the family tree. He had started this to protect them, if they were hurt because of him. "Faster," he roared. At the house, it had already begun. David and James and the 4 other men were good. They were behind the stone walls of the property, using cars and the thick front door for cover. But Alberto Vanzetti had come with at least 10 men, and they were angry, firing wildly. Bullets chipped at the stone of the house. A window on the first floor shattered. Inside, Stella grabbed Alina and pulled her to the floor, crawling into a hallway with no windows. Rose was already there, her face white. Mercy ran in from the kitchen and joined them. "Stay down," Stella yelled, covering Alina with her body. Alina was crying. "Where, Uncle Sal?" "He's coming, baby. He's coming." Outside, David shot a Vanzetti man who tried to rush the gate, but there were too many. Another of Salvador's men cried out and fell, hit in the shoulder. James was on the phone. "Boss, we can't hold long. They're pushing the gate." Then, from down the street, they heard the roar of engines. Salvador's cars arrived at full speed. They didn't stop. The lead car slammed right through the small group of Vanzetti men at the end of the driveway, scattering them. Salvador was out of the car before it fully stopped, firing his pistol. His men poured out behind him, attacking from behind. The Vanzetti men were caught between David's group in the house and Salvador's group in the driveway. The fight turned into a close, messy gunfight in the front garden. Salvador didn't care about the soldiers. He was looking for one man. He saw him near the fountain, an old man in a long coat leaning on a cane. Alberto Vanzetti. Vanzetti saw him too. The old man's face was twisted with grief and hate. He raised his cane. It wasn't a cane, it was a disguised rifle. He fired. The shot went wide, hitting the car behind Salvator. Salvator didn't stop. He ran straight at the old man, firing as he ran. He didn't aim to kill. He aimed to wound. A bullet hit Vansetti in the arm. The old man screamed, dropping his cane rifle. Salvator reached him. He grabbed the old man by his coat and slammed him against the hood of a car. "Look at me," Salvator yelled, his face inches from Vansetti's. The shooting around them was slowing. His men were winning. "You killed my boy," Vansetti spat, blood on his lips. "Your boy hung my sister on a tree," Salvator roared. "He threatened my woman. He brought this to my home." He looked toward the house, desperate to see if Stella and Alina were okay. He saw nothing. "You are dead, Rossi, you and all your—" Salvator hit him, a hard punch to the face. The old man's head snapped back. "It's over. Your family is done. Your men are dead. Your name is nothing." He dragged the old man across the driveway, toward the front door. His men had subdued the last of the Vansetti fighters. The garden was quiet, full of the smell of gun smoke and the sound of moaning. David opened the front door, his gun in his hand. "Boss, they're safe. They're all safe." Salvator pushed Alberto Vansetti into his own foyer. He threw the old man onto the polished floor. Stella, holding Alina's face against her leg so she wouldn't see, stood at the entrance to the living room. Mercy and Rose were behind her. Salvator stood over Alberto Vansetti, his gun pointed at the old man's head. "This is what you wanted to see. This is my family. You wanted to hurt them." Alberto Vansetti looked up, dazed, at Stella. He saw the bandages on her wrists. Understanding dawned in his old, tired eyes. He had ordered a message sent to a nobody, and he had awakened a monster. "A mistake," he whispered, just like his son had. "No," said a small, clear voice. Everyone looked. Alina had pulled away from her mother. She stepped forward, her little hands in fists at her sides. She looked at the old man on the floor with a seriousness far beyond her years. "You hurt my mom. You're a bad man." The room was silent. Alina then looked up at Salvator. "Uncle Sal, are you going to shoot him?" Salvator looked from his niece's fierce, questioning face to the broken old man at his feet. He felt the weight of the gun in his hand. He felt the rage. It would be so easy. One pull of the trigger. Justice. But he also saw Mercy watching him. He saw the hope and the fear in her eyes. He saw Stella, who had run from this life of violence. He lowered his gun. "No, Alina," he said, his voice tired. "I'm not." He looked at Mark. Take him to the edge of the city. Take his wallet, his shoes, his coat. Tell him if he ever comes back or if his name is ever heard in this city again, I will find him, and then I will not be kind." Mark nodded, hauling the old man to his feet. Alberto Vansetti didn't say a word. He just looked defeated, his empire gone, his son dead. He was led away. The door closed. Suddenly, the big, loud house was very quiet. Salvator slowly put his gun on the hall table. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. Alina ran to him and hugged his legs tightly. He put a hand on her head. Stella came over, tears streaming down her face. "It's over." "It's over," Salvator said, pulling her into a hug with Alina. Over Stella's shoulder, he looked at Mercy. She was still standing by the living room door, unsure of where she belonged. He let go of Stella and walked to Mercy. "I'm sorry," he said again. It was all he could say. Mercy looked past him at Stella and Alina, holding each other. She looked at the bullet holes in the front door. Then she looked at Salvator. She saw the fear in his eyes, not fear of his enemies, but fear of losing her. "You came for me," she said softly. "You came for them. This is who you are, the violence, the danger, the family." "Yes," he whispered. She took a deep, shaky breath. Then she stepped forward and took his hand. Her hand was small and soft in his big, rough one. "Then I have to decide if I can love who you are, all of it." She didn't let go of his hand. For Salvator Rossi, that was enough, for now. The weeks that followed were quiet, but it was the quiet of a city holding its breath. The Vansetti name vanished. Their businesses were absorbed. Their men either left town or swore new loyalty to Salvatore Rossi. He was now, without question, the most powerful man in the city. But inside the big stone house, a different kind of battle was being fought, a quieter one. Stella's wrists healed, leaving pale scars. She spent her days with Alina, trying to make the fortress feel like a home. She rearranged furniture. She argued with Rose about curtains. She made Salvatore sit down for dinner at the actual dining table, not at his desk. It was strange for him. For 15 years, his life had been meetings, threats, money, and violence. Now it was also about homework and bedtime stories. One night, Alina couldn't sleep. She had a nightmare about the tree. She came padding into Salvatore's study, where he was going over accounts. "Uncle Sal." He looked up. "What's wrong, little one?" "I had a bad dream." He didn't know what to do. He was a man who solved problems with guns and money. He looked at her, small and scared in her nightgown. Slowly, he closed his ledger. He patted the chair next to him. "Come here." She climbed up. "Will you tell me a story? Mom says you used to tell good stories." Salvatore almost laughed. He used to make up wild tales for Stella when they were kids, stories of pirates and hidden treasure. He hadn't thought of that in decades. "All right," he said, his voice awkward. "Once there was a big, grumpy bear." "Was the bear the boss?" Alina asked, snuggling against his arm. "Yes, he was the boss of the forest. Everyone was scared of him, but the bear was lonely. His cave was big and empty. Then one day, a little bird with a broken wing fell into his cave." He made up the story as he went along. The grumpy bear learned to be gentle to fix the bird's wing. He protected it, and the bird's song made the cave feel less empty. By the time he finished, Alina was asleep, her head on his arm. He sat there for a long time, not moving, afraid to wake her. He felt a peace he hadn't known existed. Mercy was harder. She went back to her flower shop. Salvatore had it repaired, the broken window from the gunfight replaced. He didn't ask her to see him. He just sent flowers every morning, not fancy bouquets, simple ones, daisies, tulips, sunflowers. For 2 weeks she didn't call. Then one afternoon his phone rang. "The daisies are wilting," she said. Her voice was neutral. "I'll send fresh ones," he replied. A pause. "Or you could bring them yourself, after you close the restaurant, like Daniel used to." He was there at 6 o'clock. He wore a simple jacket, not his usual suit. He carried a bunch of yellow daisies. He felt nervous, like a teenager. Mercy was locking up the shop. She took the flowers. "Thank you," she looked at him. "Walk me home." They walked in silence for a block. "How is Stella?" she finally asked. "Healing. She's tough, like she always was." "And Alina?" "She's amazing." He said it with a softness Mercy had never heard before. "I heard what you did, with Alberto Vansetti. You let him go." "I did." "Why?" He stopped walking. "Because Alina asked me if I was going to shoot him, and I saw myself through her eyes. I didn't like what I saw. The boss, the bear in the story, he doesn't have to be grumpy all the time." Mercy looked at him, really looked. She saw the tired lines around his eyes. She saw the man who had walked into a warehouse for her. She also saw the shadow of the man who had ordered a war. "I don't know if I can do this, Salvatore," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm scared, all the time. I jump at car backfires. I see a man in a suit and I wonder if he's one of yours or one of someone else who wants to hurt you." "I know," he said, his heart aching. "I can't change what I am, but I can change what I do. The business, it's there. It's how I protect everyone, but it doesn't have to be everything." He took a deep breath. "The restaurant, it's not just a front. I love it. The kitchen, the food, I want to make it real, bigger, legitimate. I want that to be my legacy, not the other stuff." He was sharing a dream he'd never told anyone, a dream of being normal. Mercy reached out and touched his cheek. "I believe you want that, but wanting and having are different." "I know," he whispered, covering her hand with his. "Stay with me, help me build it, the real part, the good part." She didn't answer with words. She stood on her toes and kissed him. It was an answer, a fragile, hopeful one. Life began to find a new rhythm. Salvator still had his meetings, he still gave orders, but he came home for dinner. He helped Alina with her math. He argued with Stella about movies. He started spending more time at the restaurant during the day, not just at night for meetings. He talked to the chefs. He planned a new menu. He told Mark to look for a second location, a nice place by the river, completely clean. One Saturday, he took Alina to the zoo. It was something a normal uncle would do. He held her hand as they looked at the elephants. He bought her ice cream. He felt eyes on him, his own men, discreetly guarding them from a distance. But for a few hours, he pretended they weren't there. As they were leaving, Alina said, "This was the best day ever, Uncle Sal." "Yeah, better than the story about the bear." "Almost," she giggled. He smiled, a real easy smile. That night, the family was in the living room. Stella was reading, Alina was drawing, Salvator was trying to read a cookbook. Mercy was there, curled in an armchair. It felt warm, full. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. No one ever rang the bell. His men outside would have stopped anyone. James came in from the hall, his face confused. "Boss, it's a man. He says he's a lawyer. He has papers. He insists on seeing you." Salvator put down his book. "Let him in, but check him." A moment later, a nervous-looking man in glasses was let in. He carried a briefcase. David patted him down, then nodded. "Mr. Rossi, my name is Andrew Finch. I represent the estate of Anthony Greco." Stella's head snapped up. Her face went white. That was Alina's father. "What do you want?" Salvator asked, his voice cold. The lawyer opened his briefcase. "When Mr. Greco died, he had substantial debts, as you know, but he also had a life insurance policy, a very large one. The Vansettis didn't know about it. The company has been investigating his death. It's finally been ruled an accident during the altercation with his creditors. The policy has paid out." He took out a certified check and placed it on the coffee table. Salvator leaned forward to look at it. His eyes widened. It was for $2 million. The beneficiary is his daughter, Alina Greco. As she is a minor, it is to be held in trust by her legal guardian. The lawyer looked at Stella. "That would be you, Ms. Rossi." Stella put a hand over her mouth. She stared at the check. $2 million. It was freedom. It was a new life far away from all of this. The room was silent. Salvator looked from the check to Stella's face. He saw the hope there. The dream of running again, but this time with money, with safety. He felt his new, fragile world crack. He had just gotten them back. Alina, sensing the tension, looked up. "What is it, Mom?" Stella looked at her daughter. Then she looked at Salvator. She saw the fear in his eyes, quickly hidden behind a blank mask. The boss's mask. She saw Mercy, watching quietly. She saw the home she had started to build here, in this dangerous, warm, complicated house. She picked up the check. She held it. It felt heavy. Then she walked over to Salvator and handed it to him. "What are you doing?" he asked, stunned. "It's for Alina's future. You're her family. You're her uncle. You protect what's yours." She took a deep breath. "And you said you wanted to build something real, a legacy. Use it for the new restaurant. Make it in Alina's name. Make it something good." Salvator looked at the check in his hand. It wasn't just money. It was trust. It was Stella choosing his world, not running from it. It was her saying this was her home now, too. He nodded, too emotional to speak. The lawyer left. The door closed. Alina broke the silence. "Does this mean we're staying forever?" Salvator picked her up. "Yes, little one, forever." He looked over Alina's head at Stella, then at Mercy. They were his family. Messy, dangerous, and real. A year later. The new restaurant opened on the river. It was called Alina. The sign was simple, elegant. It was packed every night. The food was famous. It was completely legitimate. Salvator Rossi was now known in the newspapers as a restaurateur, a philanthropist. The old business still existed, but it was run by Mark now. Salvator was mostly retired from that life. He had other things to do. On a warm evening, Salvator stood on the terrace of Alina, looking at the water. Mercy stood beside him, her hand in his. She was wearing a simple ring. It wasn't a question anymore. She had chosen him, all of him. Inside, Stella was laughing with Rose, supervising the kitchen like she owned the place. In a way, she did. And at a corner table, doing her homework, was Alina. She was safe. She was happy. She was home. A man approached the terrace, a former rival, now a nervous businessman. He started to talk about a problem, about a threat, about the old ways. Salvatore listened politely. Then he held up a hand. He pointed through the window at his family. "See them," he said, his voice calm but final. "That is my business now. Anything else, you talk to Mark. I don't do that anymore." The man looked surprised, then nodded and walked away. Salvatore turned back to the river. He put his arm around Mercy. He was no longer just the Mafia boss. He was Salvatore Rossi, brother, uncle, soon-to-be husband. A man who had been saved by a little girl's plea and who had, in the end, saved himself. Thank you for following Salvatore's journey. What did you think of the ending? Would you have let the old man live? Comment Bear if you think Alina changed the boss forever. Don't forget to subscribe for more dramatic tailies. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know below.